on, everybody? Welcome to Beyond the Scare. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm one of your hosts, Danny Royce, joined by my bro. What's good, Pauly?
What is up, everybody? Let's get it cracking right now. Let's go.
We are here. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining your favorite scare experts as we dive into all things horror. And we are here on our season finale, episode 22. Love it. We are here. It's bittersweet. Oh my gosh, we
Yeah,
made it.
it's been a journey. It's been fun.
It's been a great journey. It's been fun. We had a lot of great films to talk about. Some more exciting ones in the new season in 2026. We got a lot to look forward to.
Yes.
So I'm super excited about that. Before we get started into this scare, so please make sure you follow us on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Beyond the Scare, and as well as Spotify. You can go check out our past episodes and get ready for the new season and the new year. So, without further ado, this episode is gonna top. It's like a cherry, like the cherry topper, right?
Yeah, right.
To really talk about and dive into what we call our Mount Rushmore of horror. And
Or got the
I love
echo.
that. Gotta have the echo over there. And I'm gonna throw it to you, Paul. Let's get into it.
Yeah, all right, let's do it. All right, so the Mount Rushmore of horror. So,
Man.
um, our basically we're gonna talk about our list of iconic horror movie villains that should be displayed on Mount Rushmore. For anyone that does not know, um, what Mount Rushmore is. They should, but we'll kind of dive into it a little bit. So Mount Rushmore is
Yeah.
a colossal mountain sculpture and located in South Dakota, featuring the faces of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. So a little history lesson here. The faces of these presidents were carved into the mountain because they represent the first 150 years of American history. Now, a bunch of this can be debated and everything like that, but we're not here for that. What we're here to stick to is just basically what the Mount Rushmore represents and what it has represents for all these years, right? So, George Washington, he was placed on Mount Rushmore because he is considered the nation's founding father, all right? The first president of the United States. Thomas Jefferson, he was involved in the Louisiana Purchase, which expanded the country's territories. Very important. Theodore Roosevelt, he is credited for the country's development. And Abraham Lincoln, of course, is credited for preserving the nation. All right.
Mhm.
So Mount Rushmore itself is symbolic of American ideals, freedom, and hope. Basically, we look to it as, this monument that represents American history, right? So translate that to what we're doing here, the Mount Rushmore of Horror. Our Mount Rushmore is going to display and represent our vision of the horror genre. Okay. That can be any subgenre. It can be one subgenre in particular, but we're going to see what we come up with.
Yes.
We, Danny and myself, we have not told each other of our selection. So this is going to be pretty exciting. I know. I mean, obviously, we know each other, so we probably can guess a couple on there, but we may have some surprises.
Yeah, possibly. And if you're watching, tuning in, play with us. We would love to see what your Mount Rushmore of horror is. I mean, there's so many out there, right?
Oh
And
man.
so you said you had a tactic. What was your
Mhm.
tactic of picking the four?
Yeah. So actually, what I did was I looked at which each president on Mount Rushmore, why they were placed on Mount Rushmore, what was the significance behind it, and I kind of translated that to horror, the horror, particular horror icon that I thought embodied that exact thing. So, for example, George Washington, like I said, he is credited as the nation's founding father. So,
Hmm.
who did I think, basically is encompasses the horror genre in itself?
Gotcha.
And obviously that can be up for debate, right? But
Right. Yes, these can all be up for debate. But we're not here to debate you. So we just need to share what we think and who we think should hold those places. Well,
Right.
Paul, since you had such a great opening and the way you put it together, why don't you tell us who was the beginning and who you felt had the place of George Washington?
Ooh. All right. So I'm gonna start though with an honorable mention. All right. So I had an honorable mention. I couldn't place him in George Washington's spot because um, while everybody knows this particular horror villain, I guess you would say, horror icon, um, how do I put this? I feel like he doesn't encompass everything that I feel envisions the horror genre, and
Hmm.
my actual selection does. So that's why. But I want to give a shout out to my honorable mention, and that's Dracula. Okay,
Mm.
so a lot of people might be like, "What? Dracula?" But Dracula was one of the first, I guess you would say, horror movie villains that he's credited as being the foundation of,
Hmm.
that like villain that's scary, that like, just encompassed all that. I did want to give that a shout out to Dracula because I felt that he should be at least a mention. So honorable
Right.
mention, right?
Okay.
Um, but my actual selection, all right, and that is horror movie icon Michael Myers.
Mm.
All right. So,
Mm.
Halloween, which came out in 1978, as we all know, it basically put slasher movies on the map. Um,
Yep.
it it started that golden era of horror movies, and it was so good and monumental that every horror movie, subgenre of horror movies after that encompassed some element of Halloween. So I felt like I had to put Michael Myers in George Washington's spot.
Okay. That's really good. I love how you're giving the OGs a mention, because we can't forget our original Universal monsters, Frankenstein, the Mummy,
Yes, sir.
Dracula. Like they definitely paved the way for most of the people on this Mount Rushmore. So I do also I'm going to piggyback off of that because on mine as well, Michael.
Not the fist.
Big Mike, as we like to call him Big Mike. No, he is on my Mount Rushmore as well. Most definitely for everything that you mentioned. Also, when you think of Halloween, even the time period, the actual festival holiday, you think of Michael Myers. You think of
Yeah,
Halloween. You know what I
exactly.
mean? It's just a staple. It's iconic. It paved the way for all of the slashes that we have now. And it brought that it was one of the first villains to bring that kind of the stalkerness s to it. Um, and the cat and mouse chase, I'm sorry, that was just brilliantly done. And I
Yeah.
think that was one of the first times we actually saw something like that on screen.
Hmm.
So, yep, Michael Myers holds that spot. Um, and so I honestly I didn't do the the placement too much. So I kind of like did my approach to it was like, who can you not talk about when it comes to horror? And
Got it.
so that's when I definitely put Michael Myers up there.
I like that because that what that demonstrates is that you can tackle this in any way you want. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I'm doing it more of like a foundational what Mount Rushmore represents and why those people are on there. And you're doing it like who you have to talk about. You know what I
Right.
mean? You can't leave
Exactly.
out, otherwise you won't have this excellent genre. So I
Yep.
like that.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, with that, without further ado, let me get to my second one. Since we had the same, we had one. We're probably going to have some more of the same. So, no in particular order, but I felt like this particular horror icon revolutionized another aspect of horror when it comes to paranormal, when it comes to just fear in general. Um, and this has to go to good old Frederick Krueger.
What? Say it again louder for everybody in the back.
Frederick Krueger, Freddy Krueger, definitely must go on there. You cannot talk about horror without talking about obviously Nightmare on Elm Street. As you know, 1984 release, Wes Craven directed. Just an amazing film. And as we know, the viewers, if you've been watching us and keeping up with us, you know that our favorite is Three Dream Warriors. Um, but it's just it definitely brought this scare aspect even more terrifying, to where everyone has to sleep, you know what I mean? So it's like you're dreaming, and it's this evil that's in your dreams that you're still kind of trying to understand and still trying to master because it is your dreams, but it's being hijacked by, this evil entity.
Mhm.
So it just brought another level of terror of supernatural slasher films, and it paved the way for a lot that we have now. And as I said, I feel like you cannot talk about horror without mentioning Freddy Krueger.
Mhm. I mean, it's obvious that I co-sign on that.
Yeah.
The funny thing is you mentioned him. You said no in particular order, but he was actually second for me in Thomas Jefferson's spot.
Nice, nice.
And the reason, like I said before, Jefferson is credited as being involved in the Louisiana Purchase, which expanded the country's territory. So I felt that equated to Freddy Krueger because, like you were saying, everything you just said, I mean, it took horror movie slash movie to that next level. He's like a dream demon, so it made it more supernatural as opposed to just being, this human killer.
Right.
Even though he did that in his previous life, Um,
Hmm.
so it had that slasher, that supernatural capacity to it, and it's also where we first, and we talked about this in a past episode, the first horror movie villain that taunted his victims, that
Yeah.
talked, and everything
Yeah.
like
Good
that.
talk. Yeah.
So that also expanded the horror realm, what I mean? Because I mean, you see that all the time now. Chucky, Leprechaun,
Hmm.
Rumpelstiltskin, Scream, Ghostface, all this
Right.
stuff, right? So I felt definitely that Freddy Krueger took that second position in the Jefferson role. But yes, definitely you cannot talk about Mr. Krueger. You can't talk about
Mr. Krueger.
horror. Well, I'll put it that way. You can't talk about horror without talking about Mr. Krueger. So
Right.
definitely, I agree.
Yes. Yes. And guys, this may be a quicker episode than we thought. That's two for two. No. That we agree with, but this is where it's gonna start getting a little
A little
little tricky
bit,
these
yeah.
last two.
I
So
feel
I'm
yeah.
curious to see. It's your turn. What we got? Who's your
Okay.
third pick?
All right. Again, we already know how I kind of developed my choices. So next we had Theodore Roosevelt, who was credited as being involved, largely involved with the country's development. So, and this was kind of a tough one. I was in between two, but ultimately I decided to go with this particular horror movie villain because it revitalized the entire not only horror movie franchise genre, but also the slasher movie genre, and that is Mr. Ghostface
I
from
knew that.
Scream.
Yeah.
Mr. Ghostface from Scream. Like I said, he revitalized the entire horror movie genre, subgenre of slashers, and I mean, just the brilliance of Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson and 1996 version of Scream. Just what they did, like, is still being used and still talked about to this day.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I mean, it's going to continue. I mean, it's one of those. Um, Ghostface is one of those horror movie villains that, yeah, anyone could play, right? But it's more about um, what that particular villain represents and then the world of surrounding what he represents. And I think that's why it definitely has to be on the Mount Rushmore of Horror.
Wow. So that's crazy. So we are 3 for 3. Ghostface definitely is on my Mount Rushmore as well for everything that you just said. Um, man, like you really, not only can you not talk about horror without speaking of Ghostface, and obviously Wes Craven ended up on it again. He's a man behind the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
He's on here twice. His brilliance, but it's just uh, the the aspect of scary. I think the biggest thing that drove Scream, the whole franchise, and Ghostface was that it can happen to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the biggest terrifying aspect. Where it's like, you got Michael Myers. Yes, there are killers out there like that. All this stuff like, and he was created based off of Ed Gein and using some of these other who notorious murderers. But at the same time, it's like he still has that supernatural s to him, super strength, that type of thing. Where Ghostface is like literally just your boy next door,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and it's like you don't know him from Johnny. You know what I mean? And it's just like that aspect was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Um, and then just if you can relate to being a teenager, you can relate to all this. It's just another stepping stone, like you said, and it took the genre to a whole nother direction. And you see the plethora of things that came out of it. We got Valentine, you got all these different people.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I thought that was just a great pick. So I definitely co-signed on that
Yes.
one.
And I mean,
Three.
everybody here knows that we can talk forever about Scream and the
Yeah.
Scream franchise and Ghostface and everything. But one more thing I do want to point out, because we brought it up previously with Michael Myers, was the stalking aspect behind it.
Yes. Yeah.
Ghostface took that to the next level.
Oh yeah.
By it being more meta and actually using the horror genre to stalk his victims and making it
Yeah.
apparent. You
Yeah.
know, so it made it that much more crazy.
It's one of those things there where like Ghostface is a fan of horror. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas these other killers, they're just doing what they do. But he was kind of inspired by other people on the Mount Rushmore, so it's
Exactly.
perfect.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
perfect.
So he,
Um,
he he made it there.
exactly, exactly. He's living amongst the legends. So, oh wow, we're down to our fourth and final pick.
Yep.
Which I'm gonna actually, I'll do my honorable mention before I just say my fourth one because I also had one as
Okay.
well.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
So my honorable mention was an OG. That really, if you think of horror, you think of this person or this iconic figure. And believe it or not, he was one of the most dressed as Halloween for like I think what decade straight. And this particular person is misunderstood, yet is really just a force to be reckoned with. And I would say it is Frankenstein. Frankenstein was my OG.
All right.
And what's that?
I said, all right. I want to hear it. Let's hear your
And,
rationale.
well, let me tell you why I had to pick Frankenstein.
Okay.
So,
Let's hear it.
came out in 1931. It
Mm,
was played by Boris Karloff,
right.
right? Directed
Yep.
by James Well, and it based on, loosely based on the book by Mary Shelley. Um, it explored a lot of things. It explored a lot of, I guess, a lot of messages, a lot of themes. We have the symbol of identity, social societal prejudice, there's even like queer subtext in there. There's the relationships between the creator and the created. Um, and this like is this monster, and he was like the first monster that became popularized because people related to him. And I think that's a big thing for slashers and people in general, right? The horror, because if they're not relatable, they're easily forgettable. And so I feel like with Frankenstein, that relatability and to be loved and then to like be,
Part of it.
accepted and all that. Yeah, and it's just a lot of people can relate to that.
Hmm.
And when you think about Halloween, you think about Dracula and Frankenstein and the Mummy and werewolf and Wolfman and stuff like that. So I was like, who out of that genre or who out of that the OGs, I should say, right? And I would contribute to, and that would be definitely Frankenstein. Um, because without Frankenstein, you wouldn't have people like, Michael Myers, you wouldn't have people like Jason, because a lot of his attributes they kind of adopted that into their role. So yeah, that would be my honorable mention, Frankenstein.
Okay. All right. That's a good pick. Wasn't expecting it, but that's a
Yeah,
good, that's, little curveball there.
throw a
Um,
little throw a little curve there.
and it's funny because I don't know if you had this in school, but in school, so many people always thought that Frankenstein was the monster. I'm like, no,
Exactly,
it's not.
exactly. Yeah,
No, Frankenstein is the creator. The monster is the monster.
the monster is
But
a monster, right?
yeah, but it's so funny, just always. Even when people are like, "Oh, where do you mean Halloween?" Like, oh, I'm being Frankenstein. Like, but you're dressed
It's
as
like
his monster.
Frankenstein's a doctor.
Yeah. Right. You just don't, okay, you just don't do what they do. All right, go ahead. And it's funny because some people probably still think that today, and we telling them
Oh
that
yeah,
it's
they
not.
probably do. They
Um,
probably do.
but yeah, I think that's a good pick too. Like at the beginning, I chose a Dracula for some of those very same reasons. When we talk about foundation, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and just basically starting from scratch. So I think that's a good pick. Honorable mention, I should say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna do my fourth pick, my fourth and final pick, and I believe the y'all should know this, the viewers should know this. If you've seen and watched any of our episodes, you know who my final pick should be, and that is someone who has literally revolutionized the genre. He has the most kills of any slasher. He has the most brutal kills of any. He has come back to life over 6, 7, 8 times. He's a mama's boy. And his name is Jason Voorhees. I gotta give it to Jason. Hockey Mask 101, Friday 13th. And without saying, I mean, it's obvious of why I just said it, but let me dive a little deeper for y'all. So Friday the 13th came out in 1980, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Starring Kevin Bacon, Betsy Palmer, Adrian King, all these OGs, right? Robbie Morgan. It was directed by Sean S. Cunningham, and this this started a crazy, crazy not only franchise but um, the genre just like twisted after this. You have this deranged kid, right, that drowned. Mom went out and really just like said, you know what? No, this is my baby.
Mhm.
y'all, y'all was not paying attention. All that stuff. He died. Mom came, took care of business in the first one. Then Jason came, took over in the second one. So that was actually one of those ideas that they had was like, okay, let's make the how about let's have the boy come back and revenge his mom as the mom like wanted to avenge the son. And so it became one of the number one scariest movie, excuse me, slasher film and this came out after this came out 7 years after The Exorcist. So The Exorcist was number one single horror movie, scariest horror movie ever, right? This came out 7 years later and was the number one slasher film, where literally it brought a new meaning to Friday the 13th. It was already looked as taboo, but
Mhm.
even more so now, people looked at that date. And you can't really talk about horror without mentioning Jason. It's just such an iconic character. Like I said, it goes through a lot of, and I like seeing when characters change a little bit through their journey. You know what I mean? You got some funny ones, you got some not so funny, you got some brutal, you got some very creative kills. You got, like you, I think we talked about it on previous episodes. Jason uses whatever's around. You know, he uses whatever's around. He can teleport. I don't know how he gets around those woods that fast because, like, you know what I mean? And there's still so much mystery about Jason. That's why I also like it
Yep.
because they might spell us out a little bit more in the series when Crystal Lake comes out, the series, but there's still so much that we don't
So
know.
many
And
unanswered
it's
questions.
been, yeah, and it's been 45 years. So
Hmm.
it's like that's when it's so much we can build on, so much they can, also tell. So, and it's great. I love it. That was my fourth and final pick.
Too funny. Um, well, that's 4 for 4 because my final pick also was Mr. Voorhees. So
Oh my Lord, that is so funny.
again, and yeah, viewers, listeners, we had no idea of our pick. So
We really
that,
didn't. That
that's
was crazy.
that's pretty funny. But again, so um, I base mine, again off of the particular president. So here in Lincoln's position, Abraham Lincoln, he was credited as preserving the nation. So I picked Jason for this spot because of a lot of everything you said, Danny. So when you think of a horror movie icon, that I don't know that you want credited as preserving the entire genre or even the subgenre of slasher movies, whatever it may be. In my viewpoint, I would pick Jason Voorhees because he is such an iconic villain. Like
Yeah.
you said, he's gone through so many changes. Just his story in general, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
From what happened to him as a child to what he became in his adulthood.
Mhm.
Just like it's almost like what happened to him in his childhood and began to shape him. And then obviously what happened to his mom, everything just shaped him to this like evil, monstrous individual who don't give two shits about anything and will destroy your very existence if you come in his
Right.
way. You know what I mean?
Right.
And obviously the supernatural element is involved in that to an extent, but that's kind of indicative of life, right? Something so bad can happen to you and begins to change you and everything, you know what I mean? And you have to go one path, you go the other way. But yeah, his brutality, his even like you can tell in certain entries that he still has, human qualities to him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I mean that's huge too. And I mean just the entire franchise. I mean, honestly, Jason can go on for forever if you choose to do it.
Oh yeah.
And it's done right. You know what I mean? It can be done right. And some of those franchises, you can just stop as soon as it's like one or two or something. But Jason's one of those that can go on forever and ever. And I credited him as preserving the horror movie genre because there's so many elements in his franchise that you can think about. Oh, I've seen that. That's horror movie. That's horror movie, and
Hmm.
it basically it makes you think horror. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From the stalking, from like you said, like you said, the teleporting, like like the brutality. Like I said, even the leftover human qualities that he still has. the and his the Friday 13th franchise, one of those franchises, like there there was a final girl slash final boy, but there really wasn't. You know what I mean? There's
Right,
like,
exactly.
you know what I mean? Like you didn't have one like,
Changed.
yeah, yeah, you didn't have one like Cindy Prescott or like Laurie
No.
Strode that just was considered that final person throughout the entire franchise. So that just shows that, Jason's like, whoever, I'll get that final, I'll get that final girl, final boy eventually, and then we're gonna go on to the next.
Right. It's like whoever can get it too. Really.
But yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with you. Jason Voorhees, definitely on the Mount Rushmore of horror.
Yes, yes. That, Jason with the machete. And I think all of our Mount Rushmore people have a weapon of choice that they're known for.
Yep.
Obviously Jason uses a lot of stuff. Michael has, used his hands and stuff at times, but
Mm.
Michael with the kitchen knife, Freddie with his glove, um, Ghostface, we can say with that knife and the
Yeah.
phone.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah. I would say Michael Myers is more so like a butcher knife.
Yeah, butcher knife, yeah.
Ghostface was like a kitchen knife, I guess you would
A
say.
kitchen knife, yeah.
Yeah, Freddy, his hands, and yep, Jason Voorhees, that
And
machete.
yeah, Jason with the machete. I'm like, where did you get a machete from anyway? But he be just fine and stuff. Um, so no, well, that's dope. We got four. That's our four, and like we said, we didn't talk to each other about it, but you
Mm.
can see, our reasoning for it is, it's pretty legit, and
Yeah.
I think this Mount Rushmore is really legit. If you had a fifth spot, I know you mentioned Dracula, but like, is Dracula is your fifth person, or was you just saying like Dracula wasn't the honorable mission for George Washington?
Yeah, I was just saying Dracula is the honorable mention for George Washington's spot, because I felt like, he was that foundation when it comes to horror. Um,
So who would you say if you had one more spot, who would you give that to? I'm
uh,
curious because I had chosen one too.
so if that's a good question because I would have to think of what comes after preserving the nation, which preserving the horror movie genre, and if after that it comes to just completely, I guess you would say, flipping it on its head and just completely revamping it, then I would have to say Art the Clown, Terrifier.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
mm,
If that's the next step after, like because like I'm basing it off of the actual president.
yeah,
If that's the next step after preserving nation, just like flipping the horror genre on over his head. And what I mean by that is Art the Clown, he I mean, we're starting to see more about, his backstory and like, the
right.
evil entity involved. But um it was basically just this psycho clown going around killing people in the most brutal way possible.
Oh
You know what I
gosh,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
And like almost like borderline, like just like
Snuff films
yeah,
almost.
like, just like just ridiculous, just like inherently evil ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And there was no rhyme or reason about it. At least you know in horror movie fashion, there's some type of reason. Michael Myers had a reason. Freddy Krueger had a
yeah,
reason. Ghostface had the depending on who the Ghostface was, they had a
right.
reason. A particular reason. Jason Voorhees had a reason. Um, and like you said before, we become I don't know if you want to say the word attached, but we become more involved with these particular villains and want to see more of them because of their story and like the
Yeah,
foundation of what they're doing and if it makes sense and it's reasonable. So I would maybe put Art the Clown up there just because, like I said, it kind of goes against everything that Mount Rushmore is, and maybe he should be credited in that regard. Um, but if we're just talking about continuing with uh, the actual like horror movie genre and what can come next, um, that's a good question. I don't really know because I feel like these spots are like so ingrained,
right.
and they're there for a reason. I mean, you can say, Chucky because he's extremely popular, but does he really deserve a spot? on Mount Rushmore. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't know that. So that's tough for me. What about for you?
Yeah, I like that. That was a good. I think that was good to, talking about like the future, I guess, and use art to clown. I was actually, if I had to get another spot, I would actually probably have to choose Chucky, only
Mm,
because
okay.
um he is the grandfather of a lot of like villains like him that came after him. We got Annabelle, we've got, Dolly Dearest, we've got we've
Mm,
got
I see what you're saying.
that guy from Dead Silence. I forgot the toy's name.
Oh
But
yeah,
I just
yeah.
feel like it got a lot he's a grandfather of that subgenre of horror. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably the only reason why I would put him up there.
Hmm.
But yeah, he definitely wouldn't get, the top four spot. No
Right.
way. And some would argue even Leatherface, but because he's, what I mean, but I'm not really a fan of Leatherface,
Yeah.
but I do respect for what Texas Chainsaw Massacre did for
Right.
the horror genre,
Yeah.
but he's not my favorite.
Yeah. Um, to go with that, yeah, I completely understand what you're saying about Chucky. And then, yeah, Leatherface, I would agree. Some people may think that he deserves a spot on Mount Rushmore, and he even, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out, I believe, in '74. So even
Hmm.
before Halloween,
Yeah.
and Michael Myers. But I agree, not a huge not a huge fan of Leatherface, and I can do with or without that franchise.
Yeah.
Um, And I feel like the reason he doesn't surpass any of these other horror movie villains is because it's not a standalone villain.
No,
You know what I
no.
mean?
Yeah, the
Like,
family
yeah,
involved and all that.
exactly. That's almost more horrific and creepy than him himself. You know what I mean?
Right.
The fact that the
Right.
family's involved and they're all like just twisted. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's what I would say. But going back to what you were saying about Chucky, if we had to
Hmm.
like if I was going along with your line of thinking like that, I would say Pennywise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it
Hmm.
the original miniseries,
Hmm.
horrifying, and there's been so many like scary clown, killer
Yeah.
clown stuff after that, in which
Yeah.
leads all the way to Art the Clown,
Yeah.
and obviously now we're learning Art is like this evil entity and stuff, and obviously Pennywise, is part of the Deadlights and stuff like that, so
Exactly.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, yeah. That would make total sense to me. But let us know what you guys think in the
Yeah,
comment.
very
And
interested.
yeah,
Have a
very
have a fun debate.
because right. I don't I honestly I feel like there, are a couple that people just cannot debate, and that's like, Freddie and Michael and even Jason. Like I just feel like you just can't debate. I mean, if you're gonna
That's the
talk about
thing.
horror genre,
And
I feel
people
like
like,
there's
yeah,
some that
and there are
just
some people will
can't.
try, right?
Yeah, they'll
But
try.
I feel like you'll fail.
Right. It just doesn't make sense. Like I think I saw one and it had Reagan on there, from The Exorcist. And I
I
get where
get
they're
it, right?
going.
Right. I get it. I get where
It
yeah,
revolutionized,
yeah.
but Reagan in itself, she is not an iconic like
No,
horror
not at
legend.
all.
You know what I mean? Um,
Right. That's like
yeah, it
saying
was
like Samara from The Ring or
right.
something.
Samara, you're gonna put Alien on there. Next thing you're gonna know, you're gonna have what's his name? Norman Bates. Like what are you like what are you talking about?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
but
But
definitely let us know. That was our Mount Rushmore of
then let's
horror.
yeah, and let's
Huh?
go through it one more time for the
Yeah, let's
fans,
do it one
so
more
for the
time. One more
viewers.
time.
All right. So Mount Rushmore, we have Michael Myers from the
Yes,
Halloween
sir.
franchise. We have Mr. Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Yes, sir.
We have Ghostface from the Scream franchise. And last but not least, we have Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th franchise.
There it is.
That's our Mount Rushmore of horror, folks.
Yes,
Get with it.
indeed.
Get with
Yeah,
it.
get with it. Get with it. And like I said, let us know what you think in the comments and also your Mount Rushmore of horror. Also look at it as, in the bigger picture, like Polly and I did. We didn't look at just our favorites. We looked at what made sense, what they contributed to the entire genre, and them standing alone. Like
Mhm.
they have to stand alone as a iconic figure. And these four definitely checked off every box.
And they have to be, and they have to be timeless. I
Yeah,
mean, these
yeah.
four horror movie icons are probably going to be around and talked about in the next, 50 years from now. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Exactly. Because it's already been 50 for some of them.
Yep,
So
that part.
so
Yeah.
it's like it's good. They're gonna still go, and then as we keep revamping movies and series, and I'm excited for Crystal Lake. We get to dive into Jason's story a little bit more. And then Robert England said he's down to do one more Freddy. Like, so we got some stuff that may be coming up, and I'm so excited for the new year. 2026 is going to bring a lot of great
Yes,
films.
sir.
So excited. But without further ado, you got anything else for our viewers?
I mean, season two is going to be a blast. Get ready for takeoff. It's going to be fun. Well, thank you, folks, for joining us this entire season, right? It's
Oh
been a
my Lord.
blast. It's been a journey. And it all came up to our today's show of Mount Rushmore of Horror,
Yeah.
which was exciting in
Yes.
and of itself.
Yes.
What else you got for him, Danny?
Well, just want to say thank y'all again for joining us on this journey as we talk about all things horror, from talking about Jason to Freddy to the new films that came out this year. Um, just a lot going on, and I'm so happy that y'all joined us for the ride. This is something that we really enjoy, as y'all know, talking about, diving into, finding the behind the scenes things, and there's just so much more to come. So here's to season one. Toast. I don't have nothing to drink but toast. um, clink your knives, and let's get ready for an amazing season two in 2026. Got so much more to dive into, and some more great guests that's going to join us in the new year. Make sure y'all stay tuned. And why not check out the old episodes on our YouTube and our Spotify? Thank you so much, y'all.
Yes, sir. All right, where can they find you, Danny?
You can find me everywhere at I am Danny Royce.
You guys can find me at Alpha Boy with an I1. Again, thanks so much, guys. We appreciate you. We'll see you in season two next year.
See you in season two. Later.